think about my audience and I think about what they're struggling with, and weight loss just comes up over and over and over again. People just can't seem to get over all the hurdles of weight loss. Why can't people lose weight? Why are we struggling with weight loss?
There's many ways to answer that, Mindy, but the first way I'd like to answer that is by saying the reason we're struggling to lose weight is because we're not addressing the root cause of our weight gain. We think it's simple. We think it's just a case of eating less food and moving more. The problem is, for many people, that approach has proved really, really problematic. People are trying their best. And I think the first thing we have to really acknowledge is that it's okay that we put on weight in this environment.
That's
right?
so well said.
If we brought our great-grandparents to the modern food environment, 60-70% of them would also be struggling with their weight.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think we also have to acknowledge that as humans, one of our superpowers is our ability to store excess energy. So we can put on that fat for when we can't get food, for when winter comes.
Yes.
The problem is winter never comes. And I think it's almost always possible to help someone lose weight in a sustainable and responsible way once you find the right approach for them. So I think one of the big problems is that we see what our friend has done or our work colleague, and we go, right, that's how you lose weight. And we tried that approach and we realized, oh, wait a minute, it works for her, but it doesn't work for me. And that's because there are multiple different things that can be at play.
Yep.
I'll give you an example. Sleep. Right? A lot of people, when they think about weight loss, they think about food. And of course, food's important. We'll talk about foods. But not enough people are thinking about sleep. We know that if you sleep, let's say 5.5 hours a night compared to 7.5 hours, on average, you will consume 22% more calories the following day.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that means 5 days of sleep deprivation means you eat a whole extra day's worth of calories.
That's crazy.
Right?
Does timing of sleep matter in that scenario?
I'm not familiar with research saying timing of sleep matters. The point I often bring up with my patients is that sometimes you can lose weight by not even addressing your diet. I've got so many patients who I help them lose weight and I didn't touch their diet.
Yes.
I just help them sleep better.
Yes.
Because we don't realize that, we eat more the day after sleep deprivation. But not only that, we're not craving fruits and vegetables the day after we haven't slept. We're craving high-calorie, sugar-rich foods. Our willpower is lower the day after we haven't slept. So not sleeping well makes every other change you're trying to make more difficult.
Yeah.
So circling back to your original question, why are so many of us struggling to lose weight? Is because we're looking for cookie-cutter approaches. We haven't empowered ourselves to find the right approach for us.
Yeah, I'm so in alignment with that. And that leads me to the question of, is weight gain a food issue?
Not always.
Yeah, I mean, that alone is mind-blowing. Okay, so what are the other issues?
Well, sleep.
Outside of sleep?
Right, sleep's a big one. Stress. Okay, there was a study in America about 10 years ago now, which showed on average, 80% of people change their eating behavior in response to stress. Now, from recollection, it was about 45% of people eat more in response to stress, 35% or so eat less. So let's think about that. We know we're living in very, very stressful times. 5 years ago or so, the World Health Organization put on their website that stress is the health epidemic of the 21st century.
5 years ago?
That was 5 years ago.
That was pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic, yeah, a long time ago. It's been
Yeah.
there for a while. I think we all recognize that we're living in uniquely stressful times, and that there's a whole variety of reasons for that. But what that study is showing us that almost half of us eat more in response to stress.
Yeah.
So right, we can talk about food, and of course, eating the right foods makes a big difference. But what I'm interested in, I think very much like you, Mindy, is trying to figure out what is the action that's going to help this person lose weight.
Yes.
Right? And for some people, it's the stress in their life.
Yes.
There's too much stress and they're using food as a way of dealing with the stress. So if we can help them in other ways, reduce the stress load in their lives, again, can be easier said than done sometimes.
Yes.
But if we can do that, well, often they'll naturally start to eat less.
Yeah.
So stress is another factor. I think our timing of our food intake matters massively, right? A lot of the focus is on what we eat, but when we eat also matters massively. And for some people, it matters more than others.
Yes.
And I know you talk about this a lot on your channel, Mindy. We're all very, very different.
Yes.
Right? We've all got different microbiomes. We've got different childhood experiences. We have different environments, different cultural preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not going to be a one size fits all for everyone. And one of the big problems I see, Mindy, is that you see people attacking others online saying, no, that's not true, right? This is the way you lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, if we can stand back from that, we can recognize that, wait a minute, that's the approach for you.
Yeah.
Great. You found the right approach for you. Wonderful.
Right.
That may not be the right approach for me or the right approach for someone else.
Yeah.
So I'm really keen with my patients to help them figure out what's the right approach for them.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Yeah, no, I was thinking on that. It's funny. I had this one day as I was studying all the research on fasting that it just hit me like a ton of bricks that if we continued down the path of debating what food style humans are supposed to eat, we are never making progress.
Yeah, because humans are opportunistic omnivores, right? Our diets have always been dictated by our geography and our climate.
Yeah.
Always. And it's only now that we're thinking that there's one perfect diet that we should all be following.
That's
it's
right.
simply not true. The diet for you is also going to depend on your age. You know, are you a bodybuilder, a young male bodybuilder, or are you a pregnant woman in your 30s?
Yep.
The right diet for you may well change throughout your life.
Yes.
You may have had a course of antibiotics that has had a negative impact on your microbiome, and suddenly the foods that you used to thrive on, you no longer thrive on. So there's a lot of nuance there.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm so keen to really try and explain that nuance is because I think people are beating themselves up.
Oh, for sure. But also when you hear what you just said, I think where the brain goes is, wow, well, then it's way too confusing.
Yeah.
So how do we help unconfuse people?
Yeah, that's a really good point. The first point I want to get across is that it is almost always possible to lose weight.
Agreed.
Right? So I want people to just let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
And if someone's listening or watching this and they think, well, I've tried everything for 10 years, my hunch would be that you haven't tried everything yet. You've tried your best, but let's see if maybe through this conversation or other conversations that they hear, they can find something that it hasn't quite landed before, where they think, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's something else. So let's talk about timing of food for a minute. And I don't think timing of food matters for absolutely everyone, but for some people, changing the timing of their food intake is transformative. So what do I mean by that? I mean, there's been a lot of research for a number of years now. I think it kind of started with Professor Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute about time-restricted eating. This idea that we eat all the food that we're going to eat within a fixed window.
Yeah.
And, you know, the truth is initially a lot of those studies were done on mice.
Yes.
And people would say, okay, but how does that replicate to humans? Now, I know he's trying to do that now, and there are some good studies in humans, but let me talk about my clinical experience, because ever since I read his early trials, I started implementing 10-hour and 12-hour eating windows with my patients, because I thought, okay, we haven't got it in humans yet, but it kind of makes sense on an evolutionary basis.
Yes.
The science is quite compelling, even though it's done on mice yet. So let's wait and see what happens with humans. But also the question I'm always asking myself as a clinician is, how dangerous is this intervention, right? What's the downside here?
Yep.
And, you know, for most people, there's no downside. So Sachin Panda's research has shown that in America, I think over 50% of adults are consuming food in any given 24 hours in a 15-hour window.
It's crazy.
Right, 1-5.
Yeah, and we eat like 70 times. Like you put 70, I saw a study that was like over 70 times in that 15 hours, you're putting something in your mouth.
Yeah. So, you know, and honestly, I believe that 50 years ago or so, no one was doing that. It's quite a modern phenomena where often, let's say we're waking up early for work at 6 a.m. and some people will consume food straight away or have a coffee that actually is like a dessert because of how much is in there, right?
Agreed.
And the sugar and the cream and all the other things and the flavorings. And they're still consuming at 10:30 p.m. on the sofa in front of the television. So the point I'm trying to make here is very simply, we're not designed to have food in our system the entire day.
Agreed.
Right? So his research, Professor Panda's research, has shown that if you Just eat all the food you're going to consume within 12 hours, you can get all kinds of potential benefits. Now, potential doesn't mean everyone's going to get them, but for many people you are. Weight loss, better blood sugar control, better hormonal balance, better digestion, better sleep. The amount of women I've seen in clinic who had really bad IBS, irritable bowel syndrome symptoms, and they really struggled for years with medication and trying to change their diets. Sometimes when they compress their food into a 12-hour eating window or a 10-hour eating window, because you're starting to work in harmony with your body, right, and you're giving your digestive system a break, often those symptoms go away or are vastly reduced.
Yes.
And I have so many patients, Mindy, over the years who literally the way I helped them to lose weight was to say, okay, I'm going to eat all of my food within a 12-hour eating window or a 10-hour eating window. And I honestly believe that for most humans, that is very, very achievable.
Yes, agreed.